So thanks for joining us for what promises to be a fascinating debate about sustainable logistics. Now, as you know, the journey to net zero is very much on, and the industrial and logistics sector has arguably more to win but also lose than any other real estate sector on the ESG front. That may be why there are so many that are piling in right now. You've got SeaGrow in the UK with its Responsible SeaGrow programme. You've got P3, which has just introduced green bonds and appointed a new head of ESG. Many are looking at full electrification and decarbonisation. But with soaring energy costs and material costs also, a war in Ukraine and the geopolitical and economic turbulence that we're dealing with, the logistics sector faces many obstacles on the road to net zero. Will it successfully navigate those obstacles? That's the question our expert panel are hoping to answer today. At the end, there will be an opportunity for you to ask some questions, so get your thinking caps on, please. First, though, let's get some introductions from the panel. Tobias.
Yeah, thank you very much, Liz. My name is Tobias Kassner. I'm the head of research from GARBE Industrial Real Estate. GARBE Industrial Real Estate is providing, we are building new properties, we're investing in new properties, we are performing in portfolio management, investment management. So you can, so to say, we are performing the whole life cycle for industrial. So you asked me to keep it brief, so that's it.
Very much. Thank you. Hugo.
Yes, okay, it works. My name is Hugo Willink. I'm managing director for Sunrock in Germany, where Sunrock is a company that invests in, develops and manages large-scale solar rooftop projects. We do that with a pan-European focus and work towards sustainifying the built environments with a prime focus on logistics real estate.
Fantastic. Robert. Oh.
Maybe I will use this one.
Just share the COVID around, share the love.
Okay, good morning. My name is Robert Jędrzejowski. I'm CEO of Pekabex. Pekabex is a leader in modern construction based on modular technology using prefab reinforced elements. We operate on several markets, European markets like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Germany, Poland. We offer services concerning designing, production, and assembly of and general constructing of logistics halls and residential buildings mostly. We employ more than over 2,500 people, and trying to, which is maybe the most important, we're trying to set certain trends in construction markets, especially in terms of climate, automatization, new production methods.
Frank.
My name is Frank Pörschke. I'm the CEO of P3, and P3 is a developer and long-term investor in logistics properties in 11 countries in Europe, 60% in Western and Southern Europe, 40% in Central and Eastern Europe, and we have a total portfolio volume of currently 8.2 billion euro.
Fantastic. Alex.
Let's see whether that works. No, it doesn't. So we're left with just one. My name is Alexander Hoff. I'm the managing partner of Palmira Capital Partners. We are an investment management company solidly focused on logistics and light industrial on a pan-European basis. We've got 2 billion of assets under management, running our own funds. And we are fully integrated as far as that we do have our own ESG consultancy firm and also a renewable energy and investment platform.
Thanks very much. Now, there's been a lot of talk about ESG and now increasingly in the logistics sector, but how much walk has there actually been? Can you give us an idea of where you think we've got to on the sustainability journey? Hugo. I'll come to you first, please.
Yeah, well, in my experience, we saw in the last 3 years especially a rapid build-up of solar on logistics assets, where before that 3 years it was difficult, it was cumbersome, the tenants didn't really have that renewable focus. that is really, really speeding up. And you see that now developers, investors, and tenants are coming more and more together to work towards future-proof logistics, which are sustainable and have a big electrification focus.
And what's been the catalyst for that?
Well, on the one hand, of course, you had the government policies, which led to the fact that in the Netherlands they have a head start. Last year in Germany, which is my home market now, you saw also the government policies kicking in. But in the end, it's not the government obligations that really set the stage. It's the focus of the tenants, and they have sustainability targets, and therefore the developers and the investors have to go along with that.
So we're getting towards a tipping point potentially. Tobias, where do you think we've got to on this journey?
In the middle of it. We are, like you said, we started about 3 to 4 years ago, kicking in with the regulatory situations, the outlines performed by the EU, and again, of course, by the tenants. But we see more the pressure from the investor side. That the biggest investor side, the big companies, we can see a little bit difference within the speed. In the tenant side, the smaller ones are more hesitant than the bigger ones, but most of all the investments are asking, okay, so we need to focus on sustainable topics. So we introduced in our company an ESG team, which is on a theoretical side or a strategical point of view, developing our agenda, and of course including it in our own development team to look into what can we do with our own properties. We have 5.5 square meters warehouses built up already. We have 2.8 million square meters in our pipeline. So much opportunities to put, for example, photovoltaics on the rooftops. But we also like to point out that 96% of the warehouse space is existing stock. So don't forget existing stock. There's a huge potential improving this as existing stock when it comes to going along the road to sustainable
So do you think
logistics.
too much of the focus right now is on new build?
Well, of course, every newly built property has to implement all the goals we like to reach within the ESG agenda. But the investors, I don't think it's really meaningful if they say, okay, we sold every existing properties and just focus on the new one, and it's very shining with the best insulation. The properties are still there, they're on the market, and they need to be improved as well, because there is where the lever is, the huge lever. So yes, we constantly point out, don't forget existing stock, and whenever we have older buildings in our property, we are really working hard on it to improve the sustainability of those buildings.
So there definitely needs to be a shift in focus, doesn't there? Frank, can I bring you in on this one now? So where are we on the journey?
Yeah. That actually the other two microphones are working. Pablo will lift them as you speak. So feel free to use the other ones, and Pablo is in charge and he will lift them up, which will make life easier for everybody.
But it's still okay. It's like it's even better sharing the one. It's like creating community.
I would agree that we're in the middle of the journey. Yeah? So it has started some years ago. I think the one driver was the general societal development. So I think there's a general expectation that this topic is taken seriously. And then I would also agree that there's more attention from the investor side than from the tenant side. On the tenant side, we do have some, branded corporates, I would call them, where there is a high interest and they have their own sustainability strategies which they want to implement. But there are others who have a more short-term orientation where the pressure is less. But we have issued our first green bond of 1 billion euro in the beginning of the year, and there we included, as a matter of fact, a green framework. And this includes not only the new developments, but also the existing stock. So we committed to have 75% of our assets certified as BREEAM very good or better. And we will achieve this target by the end of the year. So we do pay attention to the existing assets. Of course, it's easier for the new ones. For the new ones, we have set our standard that we want to develop every building we do at a standard of BREEAM excellent or better. and that's easier. But yes, it's correct. We have to take advantage and take care of the existing properties as well.
So I think when you come to Braham, very good isn't seen as very good anymore, is it? It really needs to shift towards excellence, certainly on the new builds front.
Yeah, on the new builds, of course, I think over the time, expectations will rise. And of course, I mean, why having these certificates? It's a means to simplify a very complex topic. Yeah? So maybe in 5 years from now, we will use other measurements, but of course it's like an easy title. Yeah? So, and we will have to pay attention, and we will have to get much more sophisticated in the criteria which you apply for having a sustainable building. And of course, a lot of right now is driven by gathering the information, having the processes in place. It's not only about carbon footprint or so. Yeah? So and this will be a moving target, and I'm pretty sure that in 3 years from now we will have a very different conversation at a panel like this.
I mean, that's why I think people think there's a mountain to climb here still, or the journey, maybe some are not halfway through the journey yet. Robert, what are your thoughts on where we're at right now?
Okay. First of all, as a construction company, after last year meetings, we decided to take systematic approach to what we really can do in terms of sustainability, because we are as a construction company, we are responsible for the footprint which is created during erection of the building, as well maybe on the possibilities to use photovoltaic, for example. So later during the panel, I hope I will have the opportunity to say what exactly we are focusing on. It is we divided it on the things we can do during the production process and during the designing process. Maybe as a starting point, I would say that if we are talking about where we are on the journey, for a company like ours, it's very important that investors are really aware of the problem, and the investors are demanding from companies like ours that the certain standards are met, and the efforts to reduce CO2 and to produce more in a more climate friendly way are met by the companies like ours.
And are they demanding that now increasingly?
Actually, they are not. I will give you two examples. Actually, I don't have a feeling that the pressure is so big now. Maybe in terms of some formalities, but for example, once we prepare our proposal for our clients, we calculate CO2 footprint when connected to constructing the structure of the building. And not many people are at this point interested in this calculation. So price is very important, of course, but not everyone is at least looking at the amount of CO2 which is needed to make a structure. And this is something we are still doing it, convinced that people at certain point of time will get interested. And the second example is there are roofs. Our technology allows to easily provide the investor with additional allowance for loading, for installing photovoltaic panels. And sadly, I have to say that not every investor, not every developer are interested in having its roof ready for photovoltaic panels assembly. So
there's an education
because the
piece
price is
right?
the price take a first advantage, takes first priority. It's sometimes is for some people it's maybe better to save slightly on the roof, especially if it's made on in technology with steel technology, rather than allow possibility to easily install photovoltaic panels on the roof.
So there's a bit of a cost barrier at the moment potentially.
It's even based on our based on our proposals. It's even not the problem of cost. It's the problem of getting certain customs, getting used to certain solution, not changing the way some people operate. Because you have to know that my experience is that the construction market is extremely conservative.
Yeah, a bit of a knowledge gap then. Alex, can I bring you in here quickly?
Is that working? Yeah,
it
fine,
is.
Fine. Liz, I partly disagree with what you said before, and only on two terms. You said, is it?
Closer.
Can you hear? Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Is it a mountain? No, it's a small hill. So if you dig deep into it, the technical problems you face can be easily solved in most cases. Yeah. And what we see, and that is the most concerning bit from our perspective, is not a journey. They're moving in circles. So any conference you go to, it's the most ESG is the most overstretched word you come across. So, and if you listen to people, in most cases, and I'm taking it politely, they just don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, and it's always E, S, and G. So it's not only the E. Yeah, but all those measures have to be tackled simultaneously. And we believe that the good thing is that in logistics you have more easy applying technical measures other than you operate a high-rise office building.
So with this hill, how far are we up the hill?
Let me come to back what I said before. If you look at the perspective of investors, so what we experienced, and I'm going back 12 months ago, so we came up with the first ESG initiatives. Yeah? And most of them said, well, you can do whatever you like as long as it's not going to cost me any penny or any drawback in returns. And we said, okay, well, let's wait. Now they're coming back and say, could we possibly have a look again on that ESG strategy of yours and have it more defined? So it's coming.
So the
yeah,
knowledge
but
gap
it took a long way. So we got the first approved for the first approved Article 9 German Logistic Fund. We got that approval in February. We still have it in the bookshelf because we couldn't find that interest of investors when we went out beginning of this year.
Thanks very much for that. In terms of who's ahead of the curve here, country-wise, it seems to me that the Netherlands is always cited as being on the front foot very much on the ESG front. Why is that? Hugo?
Hello? Hello? Yes, test. I think that is twofold. On the one hand, of course, the Netherlands was ahead with the government policies, but also if you compare the Netherlands with the rest of the European countries, there tends to be a rather quick decision-making process. And you think I have a roof and you can install solar panels, but it is complex. You have to get everyone in line: the investor, the developer, the tenant, the insurance party, etc. Sorry. Yeah. Banks, of course.
And what about the regulatory piece? That's played a part in it, has it?
Yeah, and that is what you seeing coming up now, especially last year in Germany. France is now building up, and of course, from all the governments throughout Europe, that pressure will continue. But in what I am seeing in the market, and back to the question from the, are we doing enough from the investment side at the moment? I think that if in 5 years you have an asset which is energy inefficient, that asset will devalue. So in that sense, now is the time to also think about how can I sustainify my logistic property.
You've coined a new word there. I hadn't heard of sustainify before, so I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Yeah, I made that up about a year ago.
That's good. I like it. Tobias, what about your thoughts on the Dutch market, the Netherlands? Well, how's that sort of? Why is it so far ahead?
Yes.
That one definitely isn't working, is it?
Our thoughts on the Dutch market. Yeah, since we entered the Dutch market as well a few years ago, we have really boots on the ground with our own team, and we are also building and own properties, building up own portfolios. It's of course a huge topic for us as well, and we can compare it between all the different countries because we also have a pan-European approach, and we see the different pace in the different countries. And in some markets, it's very where the markets are monocentric. It's easier because in Germany, for example, we have 16 different building laws in place. We have the market is more complex, and for example, we had to fight in Germany many. That's why I added banks. We had to reassure them that photovoltaics on a rooftop, it's not bad. It's a very good thing, and currently, as far as I know, it's when we evaluate a property, it's going in as neutral. It's not a bonus. It's not something which adds to the sustainable value. And I think this should change the mindset. And here I think the Dutch market is much more advanced. When it comes to the S part of ESG, for example, if you see facades or how properties look like, I think it's a huge, you can instantly see it if you enter some commercial zones in the Netherlands, that they look differently because they feel the pressure to just they need to be more implemented in the surrounding. It's just it's a different or many things are a little bit more developed than in other markets.
There's a different mindset there, and people are more embracing. Is that
I wouldn't say mine. It just they had a few years. We started a few years later. So if you wait and see a few years, I think we will reach the same situation. It won't change. I think all over Europe it will be the same, but it's a different pace in different countries.
But we're all sort of on the case now, I guess, with ESG. I know what the audience want to hear. They want to know what you're doing exactly. So what are your key ESG priorities at the moment? Can I come to you first, Robert?
Okay, so we started from photovoltaics. So it's one of the examples. We operate 6 factories. Now we install photovoltaics roof on 4 of them, and we treat them also as a kind of a showroom to show investors that it does make sense. And of course, let's be honest. In my opinion, photovoltaic is not that efficient now because of that we don't have a efficient way of storage of the energy, and it's of course true. But this is a first step. Why not to do it? It's like it's a must, in my opinion. As a Pekabex, we are also, and this is a part of what we are doing. This is the concrete steps which we are doing in terms of photovoltaic. On the other hand, in terms of designing of our product, in designing of our roofs, we propose every investor to have additional loading for installing photovoltaics, even if they are not ready to do it, or even they're not sure to do it now. We are telling them, okay, why not to have the reserves for being able to install it in the future. And for me, trying to save really petty money in order to not to have and not having it, for me it's simply stupid. But sometimes people make this stupid decision, and I'm seeing this. So we are trying to convince people, and if there would be, that's why I mentioned awareness from investors. If investors would be more aware, they wouldn't be so stupid to allow to purchase or build buildings which don't have this possibility. It's like, it's crazy. As a Pekabex, as I said, we focus on few things in our efforts for the climate. So first, in the production process. So we use circular economy, reusing the water, using the wood, using the plywood again. So trying to be really careful about this. Now there is a issue of transportation, didn't mention here. As we are expanding the chain of our factories in order to not to transport our elements too far. It's obvious, but not obvious to everyone. I think in the beginning, in Poland, there was a situation when our competitors were traveling, were offering their products close to our factory, and we were offering our products close to theirs, 300 kilometers. And I said, yes, listen, this is crazy. And the only solution was the consolidation of the market, because we were not able to discuss that. Okay, let's keep to our location. So as a Pekabex, we started consolidation effort in order to be able to offer investors products closely from the vicinity of our factory. So it's obvious, but not only obvious. Now people are not asking. People are not asking the questions for how long you are transporting your elements. It's only the money. As I said, we decided to calculate CO2 trace in our proposal. So you will find in our proposal you will find how many exactly CO2 it's comprised. Because as a construction company, during the construction phase, what we can do is reduce the number of CO2. How we can, and again, this is designing how we can use it. We can use it by reducing number of steel used in our structure, and in reducing number of cement. And this is exactly what we are doing. Then changing when possible, of course, it's not 100%, because at the end, logistics halls will be built in the foreseeable future for me, will be built from the cement and steel.
So a huge number of factors to consider, but pragmatic solutions
yes,
are what
we are trying to be
here.
pragmatic and try to cut, like English says, cut the bullshit.
Yeah,
In this
like
in this
that.
story, and this other saying, the English saying, which I like very much, is put your mouth where your money is. Opposite.
The other one,
Put your money where your mouth is.
Perfect, that's it.
So,
but we need to see a bit more of that, don't we?
Yes, this year we are going to invest more than 3 million. Okay, this and next year we are going to invest more than 3 million euro on the pro-climate investment.
You're definitely putting your money where your mouth is. That's
yes,
great.
we are
to
trying
hear.
to do this.
Frank, your thoughts, please.
Let me explain to you what we are doing and what we are not doing. Yeah? So we have put the ESG topic on high on our management agenda. So we have hired a head of ESG. We are systematically addressing it. What we are not doing is we are not putting up targets which will be binding for the successor of my successor, and in 10, 15 years, which are very ambitious and nobody is responsible to implement them. So that means at the end of the day, it's very basic things where we try to do specific things better than before. I mentioned the certifications, which of course where certain other things follow these. So this is high on it. We have done our LED program. We stand at 75% of our assets are fully LED lighted now, and this will very quickly go up to 100%. There's a positive business case to it. We do little things like water taps. What do we do with usage water? We equip our parks with electrical loading stations, facilities for bikes, and all these things. And when we do develop, yes, and that was an interesting example what Robert said, of course we make all our roofs ready for solar panels because we believe this is an absolute must. And as we are also buyers on the market, if an asset which is offered to us has not these things, we look at it and either we do not buy at all if it cannot be repaired, or we basically include into our budget, which we have to deduct from the purchase price, the cost to upgrade this asset. So I believe that there is an economic value in preparing the asset for very specific measurements. And of course, there's always a balancing act between things which cost a lot of money and have very little effect, or less money and have a relatively big effect. And then, of course, governance and regulation is helping. One interesting example from the Netherlands, for example, is like at least in parts of Netherlands, you cannot get gas anymore for heating. As you don't want to do oil, what's your choice? You can do electricity, but electricity is super expensive now, so you're practically forced to do heat pumps. If you combine heat pumps with floor heating, I think this is a major innovation for it, which probably will find its way to Europe, which is a very good example. And this is very pragmatic and very drastic in that way. Yeah? So because your business case is much easier. Yeah? So it makes financial sense. And this is, we are going through all these measurements piece by piece and see what makes sense at this stage. Where does it make sense to invest now to prepare for a later move to avoid the additional cost? And this will keep us busy for the next years, I guess.
So you're taking a fail to prepare, prepare to fail kind of approach to things. Thanks very much. Alex?
Yeah, and in order not to be boring, so we pretty much do the same what all the other components are doing. But let me come to another point. So all the technical installations, yeah, the solar power, the LED lighting, it's all in our hands. But the more important point, the reason we're doing it, to offset the energy consumption on site. Yeah, so you have to get over time the grip onto your tenants, which you by law don't have. Yeah, so we even go as far as in the new funds thinking of whether it might have a more positive impact to buy, because we're only mostly buying existing assets, shorter leases in order to have the ability to exchange the tenant if you've got, in case you've got somebody with a high energy consumption. Because if it's somebody who's producing aluminium, you could put as much solar panels on the roof. You will never ever match that energy consumption on site.
Thanks very much for that. We're getting quite tight on time here because we started late. It's not our fault. How do we create more sustainable, clean energy logistics hubs that are truly future-proof? If you want to add in your priorities as well for ESG while you're answering this question, please do. Can I come to Tobias first?
Yeah, when I think of logistics in the future and about energy, I like to think about that logistic properties could be part of the electrical grid, because it's decentralized. They produce power. They have to get the power into the electrical grid or consume it. And since we are also, as a company, developing data centers, energy is more or less what we talk about all the time. And we often have the problems, either there is no power in the grid we can tap on, or there is no capacity that we can insert the power into the grid. So the grid itself needs to be improved, and what we saw in Europe this year with the energy crisis, it adds to the problems that in some countries we are dependent on some very big power plants, and when they all go off because of different reasons, we have big problems. Right now, today I read the newspaper and saw, okay, the European Union are talking about blackout and strategies about how can we cope with blackouts. So if we try to see logistics as parts of the electrical grids, as the nodes inside the electrical grids, and it could be more than just photovoltaics, but we in the Netherlands we're working with windmills at some one property.
Do you think full electrification is possible though, given the demands on the grid?
Can't answer yet, but
not a red herring. Some people in the UK are saying it's a bit of a red herring, especially with electric vehicles. Wait for hydrogen.
Well, but could you rephrase?
Some people in the UK, when it comes to electric vehicles, for instance, are saying it's a complete red herring, or it's going to be a flash in the pan, and wait for hydrogen.
Yeah, when it comes to how do we transport the goods, I would bet more on hydrogen than on electrical vehicles, because we're just about to starting implementing electrical vehicles. They are really expensive right now. They have a short range, and it really depends on in what part of the logistics networks we're talking about. Is this a shorter traffic? Then yes. So we really need to think about every property will of course have loading stations and etc. But for the long haul transport, I think hydrogen needs to be implemented as well into the strategy, and therefore it's energy, and in combination of photovoltaics, electrical energy, as well as hydrogen. This will do the trick into the future. We should really set everything in motion to keep this up and running.
So companies need their own generators, don't they, basically, for this to perhaps work in terms of on-site electricity generation. Hugo?
Let me dive in there, and that's exactly the point that I wanted to make. If you want to transform a logistics hub into a clean energy logistic hubs, you need on-site energy generation, that's one thing. Second of all, you need on-site energy storage and further electrification. And of course you have to think about is my building energy efficient enough? But that's the third. It all starts with the on-site energy. It all starts with the on-site energy, making of the energy, and then that storage. And that is something that, yes, hydrogen is also very interesting, but that's years down the road, and it is absolutely possible. And I get that in the UK or wherever in Europe people say that you have to wait for hydrogen because you will never get to full electrification. But I see it happening. I see it happening in the Netherlands, where we are building projects with solar PV and battery storage. We do the same in Germany and through the rest of Europe. So it is definitely going into that direction.
And do you think we'll be able to generate sufficient energy?
Yeah, that's the question, what is sufficient? But yes, I do. And I think that if you combine on-site energy generation for logistics with on-site storage, then it is absolutely possible. And then it comes back to a business case. At the moment, batteries are still quite expensive, but that price is also going down. So at Sunrock a year ago, we made an investment decision to install a battery for logistics parks in the Netherlands, which was at the moment was a learning decision because there was simply no business case, because we thought the market is going into this direction, so we have to do it. Now, we're at the moment a bit lucky with the high energy prices that the business case is actually positive. And those prices will go down, and it will become a combination of on-site and generation and on-site storage.
Thanks very much. Okay, we've got time for one more question. I want a quick fire answer from all of you on this one. And it's about what you think lies ahead. So given the myriad challenges facing the logistics sector, how likely is it to achieve its sustainability ambitions in the next year to 2 years? And what role can you play as a company? So I know really short and sharp answers on this one, please. I'll start with Alex.
Well, most has already been said. So I used to work in the past with an English bloke, and his most loved phrase was, at the end of the day, it's just a bloody shed. We talked through all those technical measures and installments which can be done, and if it's a standard shed with a average kind of tenant, which means it's got an average kind of energy consumption, you're still fine. Only applying to the E. S and G is a different matter. Yeah.
Okay, so that's your focus. Thanks very much for that. Robert, what does the next 2 years hold?
Okay, I would say, I think, as I said, we are trying to be pragmatic. So we are thinking what we can do in order to reduce certain raw materials in completing the logistics goal. But in the end, as it was said, it's going to be built from a steel and concrete. So we are trying to do as much as we can.
No timber frame construction in the UK.
No timber frame. I think it's we just talked about this a few days ago. In my opinion, construction from timber is it's a crazy idea. So cutting off the woods in order to construct buildings, it's, for me, it's crazy. I know that it's sometimes popular, but well, that's my view. And once we mentioned the energy prices, the drastic increase of energy prices made a lot of for a climate. For example, as Frank mentioned, the heat pump are now making commercial sense. But I think we should be cautious about this, because a lot of materials could be imported from, and I think Europe and investors should think about this, that we are tightening certain procedures in order for our product to be more climate friendly. On the other hand, allowing the huge import from the countries who don't really care about this, and I think this could lead us to some big mistakes. And
so, are you bullish or bearish about the next year or so?
No, I'm not bearish. I'm thinking let's work on the pragmatic way, and let's communicate what was really achieved.
Okay.
In terms of real progress, not talks.
Anybody else sort of, Tobias, what are you thinking? Upbeat or not so upbeat about the next 2 years?
It's really Mike Logistics here. So in the next 2 years, it's a company which is providing new products in terms of project developments as well as investments, portfolio manage, the whole life cycle around the properties. Of course, many people are now thinking in yields and rent development. So the focus is it's not shifting away from ESG, but for some for the investors, for example, other topics are getting more important.
Competing for attention.
Competitive, yeah, right, within the discussion. But you asked about the road. It's a kind of marathon, and we will continue. We have a good plan. We have a good team. And a good strategy, and we'll still focus on it to reach our goals. But there are many obstacles still lying ahead. For example, when it comes to S in the ESG term, there's still no real measurement system in place. How how are we developing our properties when it comes to S?
Well, there's no real definition.
Yeah, there's no real definition. Yes, right. So of course we are thinking about what can we do to improve well-being for the lorry drivers in the properties and for our tenants as well as in many other things. But still we need many answers we cannot provide. As a regulatory problems, tax problems, many things on the road. But we are working on it parallel, and I think we are making good progression. We'll continue.
So challenges and opportunities, Frank. Pass the mic, please.
This, I do not even think that it's really relevant if we are pessimistic or optimistic.
Okay.
We have to do something about it. And the one topic, a big challenge for Europe and globally, is that we are lacking sustainable energy and mainly electricity. So the question is, what can we contribute as the owner and operator of logistics properties? We have these millions of square meters of roofs which are not for good use. Yeah? So as for us, it's super important that we start and that we define a precise strategy for the rollout of our solar panels. And we want to become a net contributor, a net producer of energy. And of course, you can combine it with storage in an ideal world, or the grids improve, and then you can deal with it that way. But I think this is a key for us, with the specifics of the nature of our buildings with the big roofs.
Fantastic. Hugo.
Yeah, of course, I completely agree. And to add on that, besides that it's the right thing to do, there is a clear business case for adding solar or other energy solutions to your logistics parks. And I am definitely bullish for the coming 2 years and even more, because I see more and more large investors throughout Europe shortening the timelines between plans and execution. And that is exactly what will lead us to, well, where we need to go.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Is there one question from the audience? We've got time for just one. No? Yes, over here. Can you grab the mic? Thank you.
Let's see. It is working. Wait. So Hugo mentioned it, I think at one point, the fact that the Netherlands has had a real head start because of regulation. Do you think that there's enough of a groundswell of demand from investors and tenants to make the progress we need to make in the next 2-3 years? Or do you think it's going to require some sort of intervention or progress in regulations? And if you do think it is going to need the regulators to get involved, how do you think that can happen as quickly as it needs to happen and effectively, especially in somewhere like Germany with so many different regulations and regulatory frameworks to work with?
Great question. Who do you want to put that to?
Oh, I don't know. Whoever feels like they've got the best answer.
Who wants to take it? Don't all volunteer at once.
Well,
go for it.
Again, and I'm coming back to the fact that there are obligations coming from the governments, and yes, they are very important because they are a driver for investments that are in the end made by the investors, which developers then build. But what I am seeing that the real driver is coming from the tenants. They have sustainability targets, and you can talk about location, you can talk about every other thing, but the value of a real estate asset is in the end decided by the tenant. That is the main value driver, and if they want to sustainify their business operations, then the investors and the developers, they have to follow.
Oh, sorry, Alex, quickly.
That requirement by the tenant is already far more precise. So if you listen to the large logistic operators, some of them, they take DHL, have already announced that by 2025 they will only sign leases on carbon neutral buildings, and by 2030 they're going to start terminating leases of those buildings which will not be turned into carbon neutral. I doubt that they're going to be capable of applying that, but they're only one example out of a wide range. So that means if you don't do what all of us are already doing or intending to do, you're stuck with that so-called stranded asset.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the panel for a really fascinating discussion. Can I just quickly ask the audience the question that I asked the panel right at the end? How likely is the logistics sector to achieve its sustainability ambitions in the next 2 years? Very likely, who knows, or not very likely? So who thinks very likely? Oh, this is very good, quite optimistic. Who thinks who knows? And who thinks not very likely? Okay, we've got some abstainers as well, but it was the very likely. That's a really positive way to end. Thank you very much if you were watching this online. And the next session will be starting shortly on investing in cities, I believe.
Great. Thanks very much, speakers. Really interesting discussion there. I'll carry that through also into the other sessions that we've got. So great to have that feedback, and good to see that there's some positivity in the audience as well on this. And thank you very much. If you could join me in thanking the speakers and Liz, that would be great. Thanks very much.